Today I have the audacity to kitbash a sister Chaotica themed in a corn-like color scheme with Zinchi bits. To answer the age-old question, what happens if you get a little bit too zealous and fall to chaos and the path of damnation? As it should be. In this video I against sandbits flying try to work with XPS form for the first time, getting the expected outcome, but also managed to cover that up, I think. Anyway, I used the Lord Veritant model from the Skaventide box for today's build, as I really like her pose and thought I could turn her into an apostle-like former sister of battle that fell to chaos. But enough talk, let's start. So let's get her out of the runner and debure the bits from the residues. After that I already started hacking her sword apart, as I wanted it to look a little more chaotic. She will get the sword of a Zangor instead. I guess Korn will love that. It seems a little bit too long, but I thought I want her to look like a warrior in the first hand, only holding that torch as a symbol of her elevated state. As this miniature is already packed with stuff and things and also a bit inaccessible, at least for my current skills, I thought I'd just add stuff. And what would be better if not wings? So she gets these ones here from the Crypt Flayer set from the Flesh Eater cords. I just cut the meant to be connection points away to have wing arms that are as clean as possible. As I imagine that having wings over a cape would look somehow very derpy, I cut a little bit material away to make room for a Space Marine back module as well, trying to distract a little bit from the fact that the cape needs to have holes in there and somebody had to cut these out and pull them over the wings, what I only imagine to be a very awkward situation. So for the next step I tri-fitted these using some green stuff. I pressed the wings in there, realized I will need to drill some holes in there as well to stabilize them, and I drilled it through the green stuff and into the miniature for no particular reason. And now she starts giving off some Valkyria vibes. Not my intention when I started this, but I go with the flow. The next challenge was to get a back module right between the wings. But that was quickly solved. I just cut away these, whatever they are. Research told me these are stabilizing jets? 40k cracks, please answer this, I call them round things now. So I cut away the round things to make the back module fit between the wings. But first I also gotta remove the sprue residues to avoid unfriendly comments. Now onto the second tri-fit, huge blob of green stuff followed by the back module, as I like it to be straight to the core of the miniature, followed by the left and the right wing. The only thing I kept in mind here was that I wanted her right wing to lean a little more backwards to match her stance and the shoulder movement. And after that I removed the wings again to put another arm onto her. And this was also the point I realized that I should have looked into the instructions. But no problem at all, just cut the push fit rods away and we're good to go again. It was only a small bumper. After she got her arms, she also got her wings back and the head of Abraxia. My Slaves to Darkness are a very anonymous bunch, so this amazing looking head was a leftover and I wanted it to sit on a very special miniature. The only thing here was to remove a little bit of that neck clothing and push it into the head missing space of the miniature. And after that she got her new Zangor sword and it was time to try something new. I got myself a huge board of XPS foam in this lovely yellow, as I want to create some dioramas in the future as well. But today I only need a very small piece of it. When it stood there on this very small base, I thought I want to create something like stairs where this very arrogant looking winged sister Chaotica can look down to other people. The higher, the better. As it is the first time I worked with that material, I thought some easy shapes and cutouts as a training is a good thing, so let's try and keep it as 90° as possible. When I cut out the first steps, I realized that these are way too big and off scale, but no problem, I could easily repeat the process on the first shaped steps. doubling them in number as a side effect. And after that I destroyed them a little to make them look like an old, carved out stone-like structure. And the second shape I wanted to try was a column-like one that should just sit beside the stairs. It did not have to be that round or something, just a column, something to visually break the rectangular shapes I had up until this point. But honestly, cutting apart this stuff is very fun. I understand boil-eye hobby times now. When everything had a rough shape, it was time to glue it onto the base. As I'm not really equipped for that right now, I used the Army Painter's basing glue for that. I gotta get some standard PVA glue. And when everything was roughly in a place that I liked, I waited for a couple of hours and went on with some milliput. From my understanding, XPS foam is very allergic to primers and needs something like a protective layer, and while I have some model plaster laying around here, I thought today I'd try it with some milliput. As I also want to get a better feel for that material and a better idea of what one can do with it. I tried to cover the whole base with a very thin layer of it and shaped it a little more with my out-of-service sculpting knife. And I also tried to give the milliput something like a cracker structure, which worked surprisingly well. It's like painting the lightnings on a Night Lord. And when all that was done, I very gently rolled this aluminium ball over it to create a little more texture and stone-like appearance. And after that it was time to place her on her base. I first pressed her into the still wet milliput to have her footprints and honestly a better grip on that base, waited some hours, drilled a hole into her foot and put a paperclip into it. And again, a sentence no normal human would say. And after that I placed her onto the now dried out milliput and went on with adding some more details. Somehow the back of the miniature looked a little bit boring, so I thought the impression of a small tail that would be visible underneath her cape would be a nice and fitting addition. I just had to cut the root of it into a flat anchor point that actually fits underneath her cape, as there is not that much room or it would be visible from the front. And after that I just add her tail with gluing it into the inside of her cape. And I went on with giving the entire base a coat of AK's Fireland to make absolutely sure that the XPS foam is protected against the evil primer. I used a thick and red texture paste here because I can actually see that everything is covered. Again, a trick I learned from boil-eye hobbies. And when that was dry, I went on with adding some candles on the stairs to have a little more detail on that rock. By the way, if you made it up until this point, Korn demands a sacrifice in the form of a subscription and a like for the like gods, also known as the algo gods of YouTube. And I know these are heretical thoughts. And while I was doing this, I also gave our sister here some chaos seals, waited for everything to dry and went on with the painting. Again, an extended version is available on my Patreon, and for channel members, the link is down below. For the first step, I paint a coat of evil red all over the armor and skin showing parts of the miniature, followed by a wet blended layer of gory red for the armor alone. For the skin I went with violet red as a base coat, as I tried to make her skin look as reddish as possible but still read as skin. And when that was dry, I went on with painting the armor. The first step was to use scarlet red again to brighten it up and pick out the soon to be highlighted parts. And when that was dry, I went on with a very thin layer of gory red, again to bring back that wine reddish hue. And while all that dries, I went on with Bugman's Glow for her wings, face and tail, covering only a very small amount of set areas. And a small layer of Elfic Flesh to elevate and point out the most raised details. And after that it was time for her cape that got a wet blended coat of Corvus Black and Magenta. After that it was time to paint the gold details with Pro Aqueous Bronze and the chainmail with Dark Silver. And when that was dry, I went on with the most freakish part of this paint job, the blue verdigris effect. I used Vallejo's Abyssal Turquoise and Game Wash Black and painted it on the red as well as on the gold, while I wanted to have these bluish stains. I just painted smaller dots every time I went brighter, in a pattern that is as random as humanly possible. After that, it was time to paint the base. And we all know stones are blue and magenta, as well as having a coat of dark rust and black. I wanted to have various colors here to create an illusion of stones that are rich of ions and other ores. All the soon-to-be fiery bits get a coat of gory red, followed by wild redder red and some sun yellow. This brighten things up and give it also a warm hue, while also be different to that armor. And for the most outer edges I used neutral grey, also to have it look like stone and not a fleshy bit or something. And when that was dry, it was time for the necessary OSL effect that is also pretty easy. I just brush it from bottom to top using a red I used before. And after that we come to the last steps, which is adding a bit of light bronze onto that hot steel of that torch, as well as on the most raised details of that armor trim. And after that I call her done. So, what do you think of my slightly Valkyria the Bloody inspired sister Chaotica? I don't even know if this is the correct term for her. But anyway, when I started this kitbash I wanted her to be Tzeentch, but the further I went along, the more she reminded me of Valkyria the Bloody, so I had to paint her red. And I also think that the texture paste on that base was a little bit unnecessary, as it clogged up some details like the cracks, but we don't learn if we don't try. And I think I got some good cover up for that. But what do you think? Is it an anathema to use Tzeentch weapons on a miniature that is clearly a follower of Khorne? Is it an insult or is it an honor? Do you have any tips or ideas and things I could try to improve my XPS foam sculpting? Should I have painted her blue or green or whatever? I would love to know. But I'm afraid that's it for today. I hope you were entertained, and if so, leave a like, use that new hype function and consider subscribing, as it really helps the channel grow and reach a bigger audience. And we are going to see each other in the next one.